Hello, everyone. My name is Carlos Pineda, and I am the host of Gold Diggers. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with me, I am a football analyst. And aside from football, I've also been involved in the esports scene as a shoutcaster. In short, I'm a real-life box-to-box midfielder transitioning from football to esports and vice versa. Now, most of you may be wondering, what exactly is this show about? For your information, I'm not the only one involved in this show, as there are others who would contribute as well, and they're going to be our guests for today's episode. Introducing today's guests. First is a former marketing manager of Nestle Philippines Inc., a former Milo Sports program head, and a former member of the Philippine football and futsal team. Please welcome Robbie De Vera.
Thank you very much for welcoming me, Carlos, and we're very excited to get this concept and this passion project out of from the drawing board to the airwaves and to the podcasts and the webcasts. So, looking forward to sharing our thoughts and ideas as a team here, and really highlighting some key things that we want our audience to know about. So we can talk about more about that later.
Oh yeah, definitely. I look really excited for what you have to discuss later on in this show. So I'm kind of curious about your experience, in the national team. I was wondering, how do you balance your futsal career with your management training experience? Because I also heard that you underwent a management training experience while you were while you were practicing futsal.
Right. So I think that was something like 10 years ago already. I haven't played in the national team since 2009. But it was really, and I mean, as athletes growing up, we were really trained with time management and with discipline. So it was a rigorous time, of course, in my career because I was also uh, a, a newly minted corporate management trainee back then. And I was assigned to my first real job right after that, handling infant nutrition in Nestle. So what I would say was, well, what really got me through the challenge of early morning practices and then work during the day and then night practices as well was really the commitment and the discipline that we had in uh, in doing the tasks that we were tasked to do. Right. So I say this all the time. Life is like a sport, so it's really applying the lessons that we learned in sports to what we're doing in life.
Yep, indeed. And I can clearly see those lessons taking effect in your life. I mean, we've already seen how it's impacted in your management trainee track. And Robbie, clearly, I wish you the best of luck in your career. I'm hoping that you will progress furthermore. All right. I really appreciate this.
Thanks,
Now,
Carlos.
yeah. Now, Robbie isn't my only guest, as I also have someone else to be involved in today's discussion. She is a football coach and is mostly active in the Girls Got Game initiative in Mindanao. She is likewise a former head coach of the Ateneo de Davao University's men's team and a former player of the Ateneo de Manila's women's team. Please welcome Miss Simone Geldon. How are you feeling today?
Hi, Carlos. Thanks for that introduction. I'm feeling really great today, and yeah, I'm really excited to be working with all of you guys here.
Oh yeah, the feeling's mutual without a doubt. I mean, this is actually a very interesting passion project, and of course, we're all pushing forward for it to succeed. Okay, um, when I heard your story, you mentioned that you never had any intentions to teach or coach sports. Like, why or how did you end up pursuing a coaching career?
Well, it's one of those things where, you tell yourself you're never gonna do it. So now I believe you never say never. It's really purely by accident that I got into coaching. It started first with me volunteering with Girls Got Game. And through that, I got to meet Coach Nolly from Ateneo de Davao. He's the athletics director of Ateneo de Davao. And he invited me to join their team. And initially, I was a bit hesitant because, like I said, I wasn't, had no plans really of working with the sports community beyond football and just volunteering. And then eventually I was like, okay, all right, I'm just gonna try it out for a year, and then after 1 year, it ended up becoming 3 years, and then I ended up coaching football and coaching the men's team especially. So yeah, it was really it was surprising, unexpected, but I learned so much from it. And there's so many challenges, and it just helped me grow so much. Not only as an athlete, as a coach, but really as a person.
Yep, indeed. Now, you mentioned challenges, what were the struggles that you had to encounter in your coaching career or in your experience in Girls Got Game?
With Girls Got Game, it's because Girls Got Game we do sports camps around the country, and for me particularly in Mindanao. And this is a free sports camp for kids, for girls especially, girls only, from the ages 8 to 12 years old. And the challenge there is getting our teams from place to place,
Mhm.
because we have a good core team, but we're all volunteers. So all of us are doing this part-time while we have our full-time jobs. So getting everyone to show up on the weekend, and everyone getting having a free schedule on that weekend so that we could do these camps. That for me is the challenge.
Wow, I mean, that's a lot of time management required, especially if you want this Girls Got Game initiative to succeed. So, anyway, Simone, you are indeed an inspiration to most women in sports and a perfect role model as well. I'm hoping that you could actually carry on with this stint for Girls Got Game as well as your coaching career. Yeah.
Thanks, Carlos.
All right, so we have two guests, but we also have room for one more. Now, this individual is the president and CEO of RSA1 Sports Group, a company focused on sports marketing and events management. He is also one of the most integral figures in Ateneo's success in their championship run back in 1996. And he is the commissioner of UAAP football. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Relly San Agustin. How are you doing, Rels?
Hey guys, Carlos, thanks for the introduction, and so happy and honored to be here with three great individuals, who all share a passion for sports, and not only just for the game, but really growing the game both on and off it, no? And I'm really looking forward to this thing that we're doing. It's something that will impact a lot of lives, and hopefully we give a lot of inspiration to all our viewers.
Yep, indeed. Inspiration is the word for today, and one of the most important terminologies that we will encounter for this program, without a doubt. Now, you're in your career, you've captained a championship-winning squad in 1996, and then you also, as I mentioned earlier, you became like a commissioner for UAAP, and then the president and CEO of RSA1 Group. So you can tell that leadership is already embroidered in your career. So may I know how's the transition from leading a football team to a league and then to a company? How's the transition?
I think one of the things I learned when I was appointed captain of my senior year, no, of that 1996 team, was really just to really provide inspiration, and leadership into focusing on that one goal. The thing about my teammates, we're all friends, right? So it's you will get the kanchawan, they'll tease you once in a while about it, but when it comes to the game, you'll step up. Once you wear that captain's armband, it's a whole different aura that you exude, what you show. And that's what I learned and picked up and actually shared or continued to practice, no? Being in my company or even working for Nike, being with my company and being a commissioner. It's just really all about focusing on that one goal, focusing on the strengths and weaknesses of each individual that is part of your team, right? And working towards that. And with that, it's basic. It's basic success right there. If we all just think about what we need to do, and being able to being open about working together, success. There's no problem. And I think that's what I carry all the time. Nothing technical. Sometimes, you're learning on the fly. You're learning on the fly, but at the end of the day, it's just really how you inspire everyone and you get everyone to be on the same page.
Wow, indeed. I mean, of course, as we all mention in most of our meetings, teamwork makes the dream work, that
That's
popular
right.
sports idiom that we normally mention.
That's
so,
right.
I'm curious, Rels, what made you decide to venture into sports marketing and events management?
Well, I have my experience with Nike to thank for. I mean, Nike was really all about the athlete. It's all about servicing the athlete and all about creating events, experiential events for the consumer to be able to, to experience the brand and the greatness of the brand. And from there, when I decided to venture on my own, and for 7 years, focusing on sports marketing, and I think it's very niche, but it was something worth doing. That's why even now we already see that volleyball is now a big thing. The UAP is now a big thing, right? So sports is becoming a tool now for all marketers to be able to promote their brand, and I don't regret it. I feel that again, being niched and everything, I think it's something that, yeah, I focus on it because I know that there's potential. And I will still continue to stick by it.
Oh, wow. Okay, certainly. I mean, sticking by those principles will certainly lead to someplace else, and we're hoping you could reach that great beyond that you aspire to acquire. All
Definitely.
right.
Thank you. Yeah.
Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, now that you know a brief information about our guests, and some of you may conclude that this show will be all about football. I mean, you have a football coach, you have former national team members, and former captains of their respective teams. But that's where the major misconception begins, because if you look at our introduction sequence, we're also including other sports as well, other than football. And then, of course, these three individuals have already interacted with the various sporting personalities. So let's now go to one of the most important topics for today's session, which is the gold diggers. Like, what does it mean exactly? So the audience needs to know. All right, Relly, Simone, Robbie, what have you been up to lately?
Allow me to tackle that, Carlos.
Right.
It's been 5 months into the pandemic, and well, the four of us here, we each had our own things that we were doing to sort of like try to help people in need during this pandemic. At the same time, given that there was especially the initial lockdown, it really put a pause in our lives, so much so that it allowed for us to start reflecting, right? And I believe all of us were trying to find our relevance, especially given that sports is considered non-essential, and it will be so for amateur sports at the very least, maybe for the next year or so, until a proper vaccine is developed, right? So we realized that with so much talent in resting at our houses because we nowhere to go, and there's so much inspiration that is needed by our fellow Filipinos, especially with mental health being an issue right now. What I'd like to say is that the group came together with the help of other collaborations online, because we should recognize some individuals here who helped put this group together, and I would give a shout out to Rick Olivares, who started his journalism class where the four of us met. And this is one of our key projects related to the journalism class that we're taking under Rick. But more than that, it's really Rick's class being a platform to launch what we had in mind for a long time already, which is to contribute back to sports. And we were contributing already in two ways. One way was monetarily and through in kind, with groceries for like sports people affected by the pandemic. But we realized that monetary donations and grocery donations can only go so far. On the other end of the spectrum, there's also people who are affected with like mental health issues. So we realized that we had to create a platform to help inspire other sports people, well, in a broader sense, the Filipino community, to really focus on the brighter side of things and move forward and progress with their life. COVID is also, I know COVID is a bane to, well, the entire world actually, but
Yeah.
to our, in our aspect, it's also a gift, meaning it gave us time to reflect and realize how we can contribute and use our strengths to maybe push society forward.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, if you look at the history of the world or some the biographies of successful people, you realize that concepts, ideas, movements, or activities usually begin from an inspiration or a light bulb effect. And speaking of light bulb, Thomas Edison, for example, invented the light bulb to overcome his fear for darkness. Cristiano Ronaldo aspired to be a professional football player to deal with poverty. And you see guys like Edison and Ronaldo, they're able to change, the world, given that they're such a good example to the people. And I think this project that we're instilling, helping the community, the sports community to be specific in this pandemic is really something of a noble cause that's really worth supporting. All
Right,
right.
and just to go back, Carlos, what I wanted to share is that the four of us here, given we have a strong background in sports, it's going back to what I first said of sports being a great teacher. So there are a lot of life lessons learned from sports that we could share as individuals and air it out so that more people can be inspired.
Oh, wow, definitely. Of course. You really have to share the good vibes. Sports has a lot of lessons. It has actually taught us to grow up. It has taught us to be better individuals, because we don't always think about ourselves. We learn how to think others as well. Like, of course, as football players, you could relate to that. It's always a team effort. You always think of the whole. You don't just think about your personal glory. It's actually a much more wider perspective. All right. Okay. So recently, there's already a lot of sports podcasts happening here in the Philippines. So just an example, Sedelf Tupas has his crossover podcast, and then you have Marty Bautista and Trina Goitinko with their So She Did podcast that tackles a lot about women empowerment in sports. And then you have Jing Jamlang and Chris Greatwich with their Across the Line, discussing with various football personalities about their overall experiences. You have Jamer De La Cruz interacting with fans to discuss about their opinions regarding issues about the football scene. And then you have Clara Manzano, Claudine Perrine, and the rest of his crew in his Who the Heck Are We podcast that serves as like a nerd fest of sports topics. And then you have An Eternity of Basketball, which discusses the history of our love for basketball. So I want to know, or the audience wants to know, what do we intend to discuss with the Gold Diggers, or what sets us apart from all of these podcasts?
All right. I guess I'll just give a quick background first on the name. And so when we were thinking of the names for the podcast, we wanted it to have a similar theme with Exemplar, another project we're doing. So Gold Diggers came up, and it was actually Robbie's idea. And we agreed to have it first because its meaning resonated with our beliefs. And second, it super sounds like gold, Gold, diggers. And we found it funny because you kind of have to like stop and wonder if you heard it right. So now, what does gold diggers mean though? Gold diggers are people who like to surround themselves with success and aim to improve as many aspects of their lives as possible. And it also goes beyond themselves. So as a gold digger wants to help others succeed too, which is one of our main objectives with this webcast/podcast. But how do we plan to do that, and who do we hope to reach? We made Gold Diggers with the idea that we aim to be a platform, a space where we dig deep into positive stories from and relevant conversations with key people involved in sports. And with the hope that we could contribute to raising awareness about opportunities in Philippine sports and promoting Philippine sports. And we want to make sure that our themes also resonate with a more general audience, particularly for those who want to learn more during this time and those who are looking for inspiration. So we hope to do our best to provide that. And, while we're all football players, like you said earlier, we're definitely not just going to talk about football. So, and we're looking to have this as a regular program, starting with one episode every Saturday.
Oh wow! I mean, you mentioned all of this, the ideologies or the concept behind the gold diggers, and I can clearly see that it actually it offers a unique twist. Like I mentioned, all the other podcasts earlier, like they always discuss about the experience of a player or some issues about sports, but here in Gold Diggers, we go for a more optimistic or a more holistic approach where we look for what's going to be good for the entire sporting scene, or how do we provide that sort of motivation or that sort of like life advice so that we could inspire like these people who want to be involved in sports, like that inspiration that could serve as a spark plug for the future. So there. Um, Obviously, you wouldn't want this initiative to be limited on the short run. And for you to make this a long-term initiative, objectives must be set. So what are our goals? What do we aim to accomplish with this Gold Diggers program, as well as the Exemplar initiative that you mentioned or we mentioned?
Okay, so I guess that's me, right? So I think um, the goal really is, again, what I mentioned at the start is really to inspire viewers, no? And as like what Sim said, we want to focus on different personalities, you know, as much as possible. Ideally, anyone, an athlete, or anyone who's just really involved in sports or has impacted sports in a way, Philippine sports in some way, both in the past, currently, or maybe in the future. And it's really not talking about experiences like accomplishments, but really more of digging deeper into the person himself, right? So if we were to interview, let's say, a commissioner, we know that he's a commissioner, he's commissioner of this and that, but we want to know deep inside, how he tackles issues, the mindset that he takes on, because in a way, we want to be able to, provide our viewers learnings, some sort of learnings that they can take from this. And of course, we will not veer away from the issues, right? There will be issues that will come along that will need to be discussed, right? And from there, we will want to figure out what's the positive side of it, in what way, that because this issue, but what's the positive side of it? How we can actually turn it into a positive more than a negative. So it's something like that. In the end, it's really more of giving hope, and it's feel good stories. And by the time our podcast ends, we bring smiles to their faces. It's like, yeah, these guys are great. Their guests are great. The concept is great, and I think that's what we want to be able to accomplish.
All right. Okay. So is it okay if I give an example, for the three of you, as like so that the audience could fully grasp what this podcast will be all about? All right. Okay. So, for example, the scenario is, and I know most of you are familiar with this situation. It's happening in football, in European football. So, Messi admitted that he's not happy with FC Barcelona. So, if we're going to invite Messi as our guest, what would be like the questions, or what would be the flow of the discussion? All right.
Allow me to tackle that initially while
Yes, please.
Well,
Please do.
while Relly and Simone try to come up with their answers. So it again, Relly and Simone have put it so well. I'm so happy that we're all aligned in this exercise. So again, it goes back to how the world needs right now. What the world needs right now is a little bit of more positive direction, and gold diggers is the role of gold diggers is to hopefully provide that to you by bringing forth examples. So in the example of Messi, for considering to stay or considering to move, expressing his intent to move, what I would say is that on a personal perspective, we need to know the entire picture, right? So
Mm-hmm.
people are always pointing the finger toward the discontent, the salary, the wages, and the lack of achievement in the last season, and the aging team, the
Mm-hmm.
aging top members of the team. So if Messi were on board, then we'd like to know his mindset on how he approaches things and what has taken
Mm.
him to become the best athlete that he has become so far. So Relly has touched on this a little bit on, you know how when an athlete grows up, he will have uh, probably exercised a lot of values, a lot of things that can help other people in turn become the best versions of themselves. So basically, we're talking about life lessons. So what are the life lessons that Messi can lend to us that can help guide us in our own challenges? Messi is in a challenge right now, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure his approach will be an approach that is carefully crafted because he has gone through so many challenges in the past. So it's
Ah,
not a matter of finding out the solution to the problem at that instance, but we want to know the thought process because at the end of the session, we want to share possible tips that you can also take on into your life that can help you with your own challenges. So as Simone has put it very well, we're gonna be a broader. It's gonna resonate with a broader audience, not just to the sports community, but to the community at large.
wow. Okay, so there you see a sudden twist, that actually draws a different story into that situation. Because normally the media has their own version, and oftentimes it kind of does feel daunting when you read it. But then all of a sudden, with this show, you see something that there's actually a positive perspective, and I think that's actually the perfect way to instill the right mindset for anyone who aspires to be a semi-professional or athletes in general. So I really, really, really like this concept or idea. I really
Right,
appreciate this. All right.
right. Just
Okay.
like there's a method to the madness, right? So what is that method, and how can we get there as well?
Right.
And
Definitely. Oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
and
Go.
I think it's also pulling him out of the whole limelight, right, of the whole football scene, and taking it off the field, right, and trying to figure out what he's thinking on that end, right. So in this process, like in this case with Messi, I read an article that I think his son happened
Hmm.
to watch the news and find out that Messi was planning to leave Barcelona, and it kind of affected the kid, right? And he was crying because he didn't want to leave his friends, get into a new school. So these are the things that we want to bring out, right?
Oh,
And
okay.
that's all part of the thought process as well into becoming, to be able to decide, what's good for him as a person, not as an athlete, but him as a person, and to those people behind him. I mean, behind him, like his family, his family and his relatives and everything else. So I think that's one of the things that we want to be able to bring out.
Nice. Very interesting, without a doubt. Of course, the audience will certainly look forward for the upcoming episodes based on the answers that you've given. Okay. So I think we've already discussed the bread and butter of the Gold Diggers program. Now let's go back to knowing more of each and every one of you. Okay. So I'm going to ask you some questions regarding your experiences or your personal lives as well. Okay. So, all of you have played a broad scope of football in your careers. Now, could you care to explain or tell or narrate the biggest challenges that you had to endure in your playing careers and how did you end up overcoming them?
I'll start with, uh, yeah, before this, I went with football. So was supposed to be national team.
Mm-hmm.
But the two chances that I had to be able to play for the national team, the first one, I was given a chance to try out when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a very sheltered kid. So
Oh.
initially, I mean, high school, and you have to leave the country, and you're with a bunch of, most of them are pretty much strangers to you. So my parents weren't so happy about me going to a different country, even if I'll be playing for the national team. And it's a big deal because not everyone gets to have the chance. So I
Yeah.
was able to skip out on that opportunity. Uh, although last minute my parents changed their mind, it was too late already. So at least my parents said yes at some point. Let's give them credit for that. And the second opportunity was when I entered college. I was asked to try out for the 19 under women's team. And this time it was my choice not to join because, it was a lot of transitions for me. I was entering college. It would be my first year playing UAP, and I was really adjusting. And I'm from Davao City, so I moved to Manila for college. So there's that adjustment too that I had to take into account. So, and playing for the national team, trying out, that would mean skipping a lot of days of class, or even sleep. You're gonna sacrifice a lot of sleep for that, and I'm gonna have to train also for the UAP team, because I didn't enter Ateneo de Manila like just on my own. I mean, I got a scholarship for it, so I had to weigh my priorities. I guess if I was given the chance to play for the national team at a later time, not my first year, maybe my mindset would have been different. Maybe I would have said yes. So yeah, for me that was like an opportunity I had to let go. So now I can't say I played for the national team. So that's just one regret. But another challenge was also giving up my scholarship later on in my college years. After my second year in Ateneo, I let go of my scholarship for various personal reasons. Also, I mean that's another challenge and regret. But I feel like also looking back, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be the person that I am now.
I see. All right. Anything else for the others?
I'd like to follow Simone there. So I think one of the biggest challenges I had was, I think, in my earliest stint in the national team. That was I was 14 and we were part of the under 16 national team. So the tournament that we were preparing for was the Asian Coke Go for Goal. Back in the day, really, if you remember. And why it was challenging was because I was the youngest one on the team. I was 14 years old. Everyone else was 15 going on to 16. And I had just recently also taken football more seriously. So I have to credit some of the old coaches in Ateneo, like Coach Chris Monfort, rest in power, Coach Chris, and Coach Ompong Merida, who have really guided me through the process. So I was cherry picked among the very, very talented Ateneo pool we had back then, and four of us, three of us Ateneans were placed into the under 16 national team, and it was so challenging because we were housed in Ultra for 4 months prior to the tournament. Imagine, I was a 14-year-old leaving your family and to
Wow.
stay permanently in the dorm in Ultra to train together 2 times a day. Everything was taken care of. We were given decent meals. We were given decent quarters. We really had to get to know every member of the team. So our coach back then, Coach Glenn Ramos, would rotate the sleeping assignments. So you would sleep. I would sleep with the defense team because I was a right back at the time, and he would reassign us to, like, maybe all the right backs, the wing backs on one day, maybe the sleep with the forwards the next day. So he made sure that we were growing, not just on the skill bit, but also on the emotional bit and the relationship bit with the team. So much so that when we stepped to the tournament in Hong Kong, like 4 months, 5 months later, I think in a sense we were more prepared, not as prepared as our competitors, because we were playing against China, we were playing against Singapore, Vietnam, and these teams were like together for 2 years, and you could really see the difference. But the point was that was the launch of my passion for the sport, really, and it kept me working hard to be consistently on the national teams after that. So it was very challenging, but I don't regret to this day because as I mentioned, I guess all of the lessons came from that experience, and I bring them with myself until today.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. All right. Uh, Relly, do
Yeah.
you have anything to add? Go.
Well, well for me, right? It's a what if story, right? It's a what if story that I'm going to tell you guys. I think it was back in 1998 when I was chosen as part of the national team. So I was the backup keeper for Melo Sabacan, Coach Melo. And yeah, and at the time, just like Rob, I was already working. I was working with a pager company at the time, and it was really hard to balance, work and practice at the same time, right? No, I'd come to practice at about 6. Practice would start at 6:30. Keeper session at till 7:30. Then I had to leave just to get up. So it's just an hour of training and everything, right? Um, yeah, and of course I was back up, and I think one of the things we were headed to Singapore for the Tiger Cup, right? And one of the things that kind of rocked my boat here was when we landed in the Changi airport.
Hmm.
The coach at the time said, "Okay, you're going to start against Singapore, right? So that was the first match. You're going to start." All right, so that got me pumped, right? So I did all my antics. I have this thing about, before an important game, a night before an important game, I wear my gloves, I have a ball with me, and I sleep with it. Just to get the feel, right? It's something. It's one of my rituals, which have actually worked.
Hmm.
But yeah, practice training sessions, and then on the day of the game, I didn't start,
Oh,
right? So it kind of like wow, what's this all about, right? So it kind of ruined the mood, and and all these fears suddenly start coming in, right? Now, maybe I wasn't good enough, or yeah, this team is too strong and everything. But yeah, as it continued on, I think the lesson right there is just really to face those fears, right? And even though I wasn't able, I played one cap. I mean, it was a friendly, but to play in a like a qualifier, it just wasn't there. But I think after I left the national team, I continued on, just really doing the best I can, right? And even at work, so with Nike, with starting off with Nike, just giving 100%, facing your fears. You're good enough. You don't have to. What's this? What anybody says, and yeah, and even to these young kids that I come across who have confidence problems, I think that's the kind of story I tell them as well. And that you just have to rise up from this, rise up and face it, put it aside, and say, okay, look ahead to the future, and it's worked.
yeah, indeed. I mean, of course, each and every one of your stories, without a doubt, has indeed taught us a very important lesson that in life, you got to learn how to redeem yourself. You got to learn how to get back from the struggles and tribulations that you had to experience. I mean, overcoming these challenges could actually end up to be one of the best crowning moments in your career because eventually it could lead to greater aspirations or greater achievements in your career. And I clearly see it that you're able to accomplish a lot given your backgrounds as well as the awards or achievements that you've already received. Okay, so I want to know. I mean, each and every one of you have already been involved in numerous training programs, and of course, you might as well encounter various coaches in your career. So I was wondering, what are the most inspiring lessons that you've learned from your coaches?
Yeah, I'll start first.
Right.
Okay, because I mean, a lot of the things that I learned from my coaches are things also that I applied as a coach. For me, number one
Hmm.
is creativity, like the value on creativity and thinking on your feet, and like it's critical thinking, and thinking, yeah, just thinking on the spot,
Hmm.
because
Right.
that's very important when you're in the field. I mean, your coaches might be shouting at you, your teammates might be telling you what to do, but in the end, when you have the ball, who's the one who make the decision? It's you. So what are you
Hmm.
gonna? You have to make the most out of that chance, right? When you have the ball, what are you gonna do next? And even when you don't have the ball, like where are you gonna position yourself best? So for me, that's number one. And as a coach, that's a challenge. Like how do you teach this to your players, right? And for me, initially, I think it's really getting them to just play and play as often as possible so that they will be put in these different situations. And as a coach, you just sort of like frame it properly. Oh, when something happens there and it doesn't work, why did it not work? Right? And
Yeah.
I think it's also about, as a coach, you can't just be spoon feeding everything. So that's something that I learned from my coaches before. They asked questions. They asked questions a lot. So in this situation, what happened there? How do you think you could do better, right? What are your options? Yeah, I feel, and it goes beyond coaching too. And as a player, it's something that I do even at work, right? So
Mhm.
it's a really good practice. So I thank you to all those coaches. Shout out to Coach Dave.
I'd like to take a stab after Simone, before
Okay.
Relly beats me to it.
Okay.
What is it? What is it?
No, no, because
Ah,
no, because Relly and I have the same coaches coming from the same farm team or football program, the Ateneo Football Center. So I'd like to mention
Mhm.
Coach Chris Monfort, the late Coach Chris Monfort, because well, it's he's unique in my life because he all of the successes in my early in my career were really lessons I learned from him. He was also unique because he was my first employer because I also worked as a coach in the program. So I got to see another side of Coach Chris as opposed to being just a coach. So what he taught us, or one of the many things he taught us was, um, if you prepare to fail, if you fail to prepare to fail. And I looked it
Mm.
up. It's not an original, so but this just shows the value of Coach Chris because he did a lot of research before coming to the motivational pep talks that he had with us. He'd come with like uh, a short article that would inspire us and get us fired up, right? So what I learned from that is, this was early on when I was 6 years old. Coach Chris was huddling us up, telling us, the night before, don't you have to be excited about your football the next day. Shine your shoes, prepare your clothes, so that in the morning you can just go and wear everything and be prepared for the game. It will also help you later on. Even in as a coach in the Ateneo football program, he taught us how to show up early. Well, basically, show up, look the part, and really act the part. So he wanted us to imbibe that uh, very professional vibe when we were dealing with our students. So if we didn't have enough time to respect ourselves, how much can we expect from others to respect us, right? So
Mm.
it's a matter of preparing and making sure that everything is all set, and it lends itself. The lesson lends itself beyond just football. So obviously, in my professional career, I'm also into sports marketing as with Relly, and the preparation is 90% of the battle. It tries to eliminate as many variables as you can so that you can execute your program, your event, your strategy, your brand plan as best as you can without hiccups. So that's what I loved about Coach Chris and his learning on preparation.
It's
Mm.
super shows, man.
you took all my notes, Rob. I'm just kidding. Okay. So we both share the same coach, Chris Monfort, right? And he's a
Uh-huh.
very important person in my life as well, right? So I also started with AFC, all the way from high school to college, no? And in fact, when you won the '96, our bunch of guys that won the '96 was actually the first product of the AFC. So that was
Oh.
us, right? So that's a proud moment for us that we was this. But the two things. So maybe there are a lot of things that we learned from Chris, but there are two things that I learned. Number one, which of course Rob already mentioned, but he kind of put it this way: punctuality is respect for the time of others, or punctuality is
Mhm.
respect for other people's time, right? And that's very important. And even up to this day, we still carry that. Even all of us, those under Chris, we still carry that. In a meeting, we make sure we're early, 30 minutes, 45 minutes early, even an hour. We're just hanging around the place before the meeting, then go up because that kind of mentally prepares you for the meeting. Coming in on time, 5 minutes on time, that's a no-no, right? So even during practice, even if practice is at 6, 5:30, we're there, dressed up and ready to go. 6 o'clock, you're in the field warming up. That's what he
Mm.
taught us, right? And the second thing, which is very important, which I also instill to my employees, to my kids as well, is you're only as good as your last game,
Mm.
right? And it's true. You can have a great game and a match one game. The next day or the next match, you're playing terrible,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So it kind of applies also to work, or even like with me, because I'm in the events industry. we create an event, we do an event, right? And I always tell them, guys, this event may have been successful, but please, let's not be complacent. Let's make sure we're still on our toes on the next. Even if it's a 2-3 day athlete visit, right? First day can go very well, second day can mess up, right?
Oh, yeah.
And third day, we don't know what happens. So you're
Right.
only as good as, meaning to say you will always have to be on your toes, right? Because us, we're a service provider. On the client side, you make one mistake, one foul up, that's the end of you. That's the end of us. So yeah, so there. So those two very important values. That's always there, stuck to our minds.
Yeah, I see. All right. I mean, of course, the lessons of the great Chris Montfort, and then obviously your coach Celine. I mean Simone. Sorry, not Celine.
I'm Selena Simone. It's still the same.
Okay. All right. So those lifelong lessons from those coaches have indeed could actually serve as a framework for your future, and we clearly saw that. I mean, the creativity, Simone, from at your end. I mean, it was clearly evident from the designs that you implemented. And then obviously the punctuality, the preparedness from both Relly and Robbie, I can also clearly see that as well. Okay, so let's proceed to this question. And I know most of you, or yeah, all of us have like met like famous sporting figures in our lives. So I'm curious, who's the how do you describe it? The biggest sporting figure that you've met, or you've contacted with, and what are the discussions that you had, or what are the most important insights that you learned from them?
Okay, let me start with this one. I think the most famous athlete that I've actually ever met. I mean, I've been with NBA athletes and everything, but I think when I ventured to a football event, right, it was really Ronaldo. The Brazilian legend Ronaldo.
Yeah.
And at first when he, because this was in Shanghai, and when he arrived, it's like, okay, he didn't look really friendly. He got off the train and didn't even say hello, just rushed to the car and what's this. But as the days went by, and even like when we had a kids clinic, right? I was the one assisting him and explaining what we were doing, and it was nice because everything that came out from his mouth are all like what's it just beautiful or obrigado. I don't know what he was in Brazilian. Was nice. It was all positive, right? And no criticism at all. I think he just really purely loved that kids were playing football, right? And this is what caught my attention, and and we were sharing laughs and everything. And I think on his the day before he left, the day he left, for example, we had Sunday lunch, and it was very relaxed and everything. And he was even asking us, oh, how are things in the Philippines? I've always wanted to visit the Philippines. I want to bring my father to Boracay and everything. It was that kind of conversation, right? And I was even with my wife, and he even asked us, oh, how long are you guys married? And when I mentioned, yeah, we were married for about 11 years, 12 years, goes, wow, beautiful. The personal side of it, and it kind of gives you goosebumps even up to now, right? And that was the year that when the World Cup, it was a World Cup year that year, and I think during the opening of the World Cup, he was actually one of the VIPs, and having to see him on TV, I was like, wow, I was actually just with that guy 2 months ago, right? So even now, nothing can top this, but Ronaldo, he's the greatest of all time.
Wow. Okay. Greatest of all time. You mentioned. All right. Okay. Interesting. Anyone else?
Sim, do you have something?
Yeah, mine's a Philippine athlete.
Oh,
And I'm
yeah.
sure some of you've met her already. It's a Kiko Thompson Guevara. Kiko Thompson, she's a swimmer. And she competed in the Olympics twice in her whole career, and that's pretty intense, man. And to stay fit, every Olympic, that's a big challenge because you wait how many years before the next Olympics, right? And for me, like, I really admire her, so superficially, because her voice is like really smooth. Like when she talks to you, just want to listen because she sounds like a really caring mother, you know. But but also the fact that she's a national athlete who stayed and has been continuously contributing to Philippine sports. And I think that's very important for athletes and sports leaders to do what they can, as Filipinos also to push Philippine sports forward. So that's very admirable. And the fact that she's a woman and she's there and she's standing out and she's really visible, yeah, I want to be like her. No,
Yeah,
but
she's
yeah,
very confident. Very confident.
she is. She is.
Yeah. I like-
Uh, Thanks, Sim. How I want to share about well, thanks to the my stint with Milo, had the opportunity to meet Eric Abidal, and we met him in La Masia.
Oh
So
wow.
it was a good experience. And what struck me about Abi the most is, well, everyone knows that he survived through cancer, right? And he still managed to play after that. So he really loved the kids. So Abidal works with the Barca Legends Foundation. What they do is really inspire kids, and he's a really good ambassador for the sport and for the team. So he really went hands on with the kids. I remember in one of the trainings, one of the kids got slightly injured. Tapos he took the kid to the side pa. He was making sure the kid was okay, tas encouraging him. And he posed for pictures. It didn't matter to him how long we were taking up of his time. And it just so happened with my photo with him, he asked me if so you brought the Philippine team with you. I said yes. And he goes, thank you very much for what you're doing. It's awesome work. So he was doing it
Oh.
with his French accent pa. So parang Catalan French accent pa. So hard to understand, but he meant well, and he really congratulated us for the initiative and pushing sports, right? But I want to cheat the answer a little bit, and I want to go back to what Simone did, was to call out Filipino icon. Like for me, Ada Milby, because I met Ada in the Milo program, and she was the one who got rugby into the Milo sports program, and it's since picked up from there. Like just recently, Ada was recognized as one of the 50 most influential rugby athletes for the for the World Rugby Union, right? So, and she's such a down to earth person. You wouldn't expect much from you think she's so would treat herself very importantly, but it's the opposite. I remember in the 2017 Singapore Sea Games, she even offered me a ride from the airport to our hotel because we were sharing the same hotel. So that's where the team was billeted. Both the Milo and the rugby teams were billeted. And I think this goes back to what we want to do in the gold diggers, right? So we want to highlight these lesser known things about our potential guests that we will have for the program. And I think Relly can share more about who we have in store for the listeners.
All right, really. I mean, care to open the curtains for next coming episodes or
Yes.
what we intend to do in the future? Go.
Yes, of course. Of course, we will be interviewing, of course, sports personalities, right? Again, like I said, I mentioned, athletes and non-athletes are just personalities that have worked in the sports development. So, for the next coming episodes, we will have Nate Berkey, former
Okay.
UFL player, Nate Berkey, and of course, everyone's favorite son right now in football, Anton Del Rosario, was just recently the owner of Maharlika FC. So we'll have his time in then one of our episodes, and um, I think we have a third episode with attorney Mickey Ingles to talk about sports law. And Mickey is really one of those credible lawyers right now. He actually topped the bar, if I'm not mistaken. Rob, he did, right? He
Yes,
topped the
yes.
bar a few years back, and has really focused on sports law as a profession. And commissioner, no, ED, executive director, Rebo Sagisag will be one of our guests also in the show. We'll be talking about the UAP, the ups and downs of UAP. So we'll not go specifics yet, but soon. Just catch us soon on that one.
Oh yeah, I'm actually very excited for that. That star-studded cast that we have in the next few episodes. All right, so done with the Q&As. Actually, I'm still not yet done because we still have one more segment, but it's going to be much on a lighter tone. So okay, this segment is none other than crunch time. So what are the rules for crunch time? Well, for the three of you, here's how it's going to happen, as well for the audience. I'm going to be asking some short questions, and in return, you're going to give me some short replies. No need for explanations. All right, that's it. That's it. So I have here my list of questions, and are you all set?
Who goes first?
Ladies first, ladies.
Ladies first.
Oh
Ladies
man,
first.
all right, okay.
All right, let's begin. All right, we're in 3, 2, 1, and go. Nike or Adidas?
Adidas.
Nike.
Really?
Nike, of course.
Okay, Nike. All right, all right. Okay, I get it. Okay. Next, Gatorade or Milo?
Gatorade.
Milo.
Milo.
All right. Okay. Before a game or a match, would you prefer a light or heavy diet?
Light diet.
Light.
Light.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, next, a player that relies on physical attributes or a player that has a high technical IQ?
High technical IQ.
Technical IQ.
Technical IQ.
All right. Next. Okay. A tactical coach or a motivational coach?
Motivational coach.
Motivational coach.
Motivational here.
Okay. I see. So I'm seeing a trend. Oh, so you follow someone else, huh? Or follow the leader. Okay. All right. This question. Would you prefer a coach that offers tough love or a pat my back sort of coach?
Tough love.
Tough love.
That's a hard one.
No, you,
Tough love. Okay,
Tough
go.
love.
Tough
Okay,
love.
you're all going tough love. All right. Now let's go for, so those are the general questions. Now let's go for football related questions, okay? Scoring a bicycle kick or scoring a back heel goal? Go.
Back heel.
Okay.
bicycle kick.
Bicycle kick.
All right, so 2 acrobats and then, all right, the back heel goal. All right, next. Scoring a hat trick or scoring a last minute goal?
Last minute goal.
Last minute goal.
Last minute goal, of course.
All right, last minute goal. Okay, next. Stefan Schrock or Phil Younghusband?
Oh man. Stefan Schrock.
Phil Younghusband.
Oh, okay.
Rocky.
Schrocky, all right. Robbie, I'm curious. Why did you choose Phil Younghusband?
We're not supposed to explain.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm the host. Okay, so
It's my show.
No, well, if you want me to explain, if we still have the time. Well,
go ahead. Yeah.
of course, I love Stefan Schrock, right? But the thing was, Phil was instrumental to really bringing the game forward
Agree.
in terms of awareness, in terms of participation. We've suddenly had an icon to follow. You know what I mean? So, with
Yeah.
respect to like the grassroots football movement, Phil was very instrumental there. So that's why.
All right.
That's why I have to change my answer.
Well, you're gonna change your answer.
I'm sticking with mine.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Okay. Next, Kaya FC or Ceres Negros?
Ooh. Wow, that's tough too. Kaya FC.
Kaya.
Kaya FC.
Kaya, because I played for Kaya.
I played for Kaya too.
Exactly.
My cousin played for Kaya.
Okay. All right. So there's some biasness factor as well. Okay. Last question. All right. Shaolin Soccer or Goal Film franchise?
Shaolin Soccer.
All right.
Shaolin Soccer.
Shaolin
Sorry.
Soccer, because I'm not familiar with the other one.
Shaolin soccer, yeah.
All right. Okay. So, yep, that wraps up our the final segment for today's session. So, before we leave or before we end this program, do you have a message or do you have anything else to say to the Philippine sporting community and to our audience? Anyone?
Sim, you want to
Go
start?
Done?
Oh, me? Okay. Oh, yeah.
Oh, Sim, yeah.
Why don't you guys start?
Well, let me allow me to say my piece. So,
Yeah.
we're so again, this is a passion project that is seeking to gain an audience with people who are interested in sports, but maybe also to a broader extent, seeking to learn more and progress yourself. That's the whole point of Gold Diggers. What we intend to do is unearth life lessons by digging into our conversations with our guests that we will have in store for everyone. And maybe before we even end this, I'd like to pitch it out there already. We also have a project that we're working on that we will be launching in the webcast, and it's entitled Pitch in PH. The initiative is aimed at helping out people in the sports industry that were displaced by the pandemic. So more details will follow soon. But what we are encouraging is for our listeners to contribute to our initiative so that we can help out, again, the people in the sports communities who are displaced by the pandemic. We're talking about the ball boys, the referees, the officials, and whatnot, gig economy workers who were affected by this lack of amateur sports events. So you can also help us by pointing us in the right direction. If you know anyone that needs our help, reach out to us and we will respond to you as soon as possible.
All right. Yeah. All right. Anyone else who likes to add, or we're good to go?
No, I guess yeah. I hope that our viewers will stay tuned, to our podcast, and of course, telling everyone to stay safe. It's been tough, trying to stay at home and try to work from home for the past 6 or so months, and we hope we could, we are here to entertain, inspire, and give you guys hope in this time of of this pandemic. So we hope to see you in the next episode.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're looking forward to having you guys dig in with us and eventually pitch in too.
Okay.
Nice.
I like that.
Nice. Right. What a way to end the show, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, we've learned a lot from our three guests for today. So that's all for today. Once again, my name is Carlos Pineda with Simone, Relly, and Robbie. And that is our very first episode of the Gold Diggers Philippines. See you next time in our next episode.